Welcome to the Cast, where we bring you all things science, engineering, technology, and innovation. Today we are joined by Tory Bjorklund. Tory is a serial entrepreneur. He is currently the CEO of Victoriified Consulting. As a veteran of manufacturing, software, and consulting industries, he has served as CEO, CTO, CIO, and Chief Software Architect in previous employment. Tory has been a consultant since the mid-80s. In 1987, he started Bjorklund Consulting Services and worked with companies to transform the businesses using technology since then. His primary business focus has been engineering, manufacturing, distribution, and supply chain management. So, Tori, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Ezekiel. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Great. So, tell us, you've been guiding digital transformations since starting the Auckland Consulting Services back in 1987. So, what first drew you into this specific challenge, and what was the vision behind starting that first company?
Sure. Yeah. Well, back in 1987, they didn't call it digital transformation at that time. It was just a matter of trying to implement technology. And technology was somewhat of a kind of like the Wild West in the 17 and 1800s in the U.S. It just there were a lot of technologies that were beginning to come online, and people were not really skilled in implementing those technologies and getting those into business. And so uh, I ended up I started out really small and just helping small companies implement technology. And frankly, I didn't know a lot about what I was doing. It's just that technology came real easily to me. I had learned software development, things like that. I was learning networking and helping to put together infrastructure. And in the process of doing that, I came to see that companies really needed help getting their technology integrated into their company. You know, making the technology valuable to the company rather than looking at it as a technology project, looking at it as a company in business process improvement project. And so that really early on became my vision is how can I help companies leverage technology to improve the success of their business? And that's still today really the vision that I have for Victoriified.
Amazing. So, I'd like to ask, is Bjorklund Consulting your first company, which you started in 1987? Is it what then undergone some metamorphosis, let me put it that way, into what you now call Victoriafied, or is it another separate and different company?
Yeah, it's another separate, different company. So in 1996, I was approached by one of my manufacturing clients, um, and he wanted to have me join him to start a new manufacturing company, and actually a new company that would build technology for manufacturers. And I told him, I said, well, I've been building this consulting company for 9 years, and I don't want to just walk away from it. And and so he helped me find a buyer and sell the company. And really, what we sold was the customer list and the reputation, but not so much the company itself. And and I also at that time had a software company which I had started in 1989 called Simplicity Software, and I sold the IP for that and uh, the and just kept the shell, the corporate shell, and I've done some software development underneath that company as well. But and started the Agard Group, which was which is a manufacturing company that still exists today. So yeah, I closed down Bjorklund Consulting at that time in 1996. Sold it off, really.
Amazing. Tell us, currently you have a focus on engineering and manufacturing. So tell us, what's the common reason that you see technically sound implementations in these industries still failing?
Yeah, well, I think the primary reason that they fail is a lack of proper preparation and the lack of proper leadership within the company. So, one of the things that happens is that company leadership looks at these projects as being technology projects, but they're really not technology projects. They're really business improvement projects that are technology enabled. And so, when you look at it as a technology project, you don't do the necessary preparation to prepare the company for the changes that are going to come as a result of the implementation of these technologies. And really, it's not even the implementation of the technologies, it is really implementation of change within the company. Could be operational changes, such as adding new processes or re engineering your processes to take advantage of technology, or it could be organizational changes that could mean adding new channels, new market channels, for example, adding new products to the company that take technology to manufacture or to market or distribute. There's a lot of different ways that it impacts the company that really has very little to do with technology, has everything to do with organizational and operational changes. And then the technology, though, facilitates that change. And that's really the idea behind digital transformation, right? Is it's a transformation of the company using digital technologies in a way that really reforms the way you do business, whether it's with your customers, with your employees, all the way throughout the company. It could be the way that you manage your supply chain, or it could be the way that you manage um, customer your customer experience. Any number of things, but those are transformational things that happen in the marketplace, oftentimes that utilize technology. And so that's why they fail, is because companies think of them as technology implementations rather than business transformations.
Interesting. I've read somewhere where you actually said that IT should not lead your digital transformation. Tell us, story. If not IT, then who should? Who should lead it? And what is IT? What is IT's proper role?
Sure. So let's start with the last question first. IT's proper role. IT should really be an advisory uh, organization to the stakeholders. They're definitely a stakeholder, but the primary stakeholder really needs to be the business. And so it depends on the type of transformation. So for example, if you're transforming your production, it's probably operations that needs to own that project. If you're transforming the way that you sell your product, then it probably needs to be sales that owns that transformation project. If you're transforming something with marketing, for example, or bringing in different sales channels, your sales marketing, they're going to be the primary stakeholder, and they need to own that project, that transformation. And they need to define what success looks like. They need to define the parameters, the scope, for example, the budget, those kinds of things. IT obviously has a role to play, but their role is going to be an advisory role, helping the people in the business understand how the technology can help them, what the benefit of the technology is, what it's going to take to implement those kinds of things. But IT is not often is not qualified to make the recommendations on how the organization itself should change or how the operations within the organization should change. That needs to be the business driving that change, and that they should be the primary owner of that initiative then, and treat IT as a trusted advisor.
Amazing. That's really one great way to look at things. So tell us, for the engineers in our audience, how can they better communicate the value of a technical initiative to non-technical executives?
Yeah, that's a really great question, Ezekiel. And unfortunately, one that isn't asked often enough. So the first thing I think is that the the technical people in the company need to understand the impact that the technology can have in the business and enroll in the leadership into a vision for technology to play to have an impact on the business objectives. So the first thing that needs to happen is the technology staff, that whether it's IT, engineering, other areas, the technical experts need to understand the business objectives and be able to then draw a map, if you will, between technology and those business objectives. So, for example, if a company is trying to scale, trying to grow, let's say we have a client right now that's trying to grow 3 to 5 times in the next 5 years. Well, in order to experience that kind of growth, the technical practitioners, if you will, need to be able to say, hey, here is how this technology will help you accomplish that goal. Here's the role that that technology will play. And oh, by the way, here's where the risks are in this technology. And here's where the like for organizational change management, for example, here's where the likely pushback is going to be from our users and those kinds of things. So they need to be able to talk about the impact of the technology rather than the technology itself.
Great. Let's go back a bit to
Sure.
Victoriified consulting. Now, tell us, Tori, what was the catalyst for founding Victoriified Consulting, and what specific gap in the market were you aiming to fill?
Sure. So um, this is about my seventh company that I've started, and I really didn't intend to start another company. I was partners in a software company and another consulting company, and I but one of the things that I saw was consulting has really not done service to their client base, frankly. And actually, I think that the mechanism of consulting is really dying quickly and maybe dead already, frankly. And I think there needs to be a new paradigm from a consulting perspective. And I had a couple of young people that I had hired and mentored in the industry, and that had worked for me. One young man that was a developer at Microsoft that I'd hired into the company. Stone Ridge Software was the company that I hired him into, and mentored him. And then he became an enterprise architect for a manufacturing company. And there was another young lady that was a solution architect. And so anyway, these two people that I had mentored through over the years, I really saw a lot of potential, and they had a vision for changing the way consulting is delivered. and executed on in the marketplace. And we started talking about the possibility of starting a business, probably in about 2018, 2019, somewhere in that time range. And we were talking about it as if, well, someday maybe we'll start a business, and not real seriously. But in 2021, actually 2020, in the midst of COVID, we saw really the impact and supply chain and other areas that companies were just not ready to pivot and take advantage of the technology that already existed that could have really helped in a lot of different areas. And we decided that it was time to start a new consulting company, and we didn't have a name for it. And as we were talking about the business model, one of the things that was important to us is we wanted the company to be focused primarily on the customer success and how they define success for their initiatives. And so I was just calling the company Success Assurance Corporation as a handle. Not, I wasn't seriously thinking that should be the name of it. And my partners are like, that's a terrible name. We're not going to call it that. And but we wanted the company to really focus on helping and assuring success of digital transformation to mid-market companies that are in the 250 million to 2 billion range of top line revenue. And so as we worked on what this business would look like, and I didn't have a name for it, one of my partners took the word, the phrase success assurance, and just Googled what's Latin for success assurance, and it's Victoriified. And the and of course Americanized way that we say stuff like that, like bona fide, and is Victoriified would be the way we would pronounce that in America, because of course America has to destroy the proper use of the words. And so we Americanized it and called it Victoriified, which, is roughly Latin for success assurance. And that's really the vision for the company, is to take what is traditionally, I mean, for many, many years has been a very risky proposition, doing significant transformational technology initiatives. And they fail between 70 to 90% of the time, depending on whose numbers you look at and how you define failure. But that's a terrible, that's good for a batting average maybe in baseball, but it's a terrible track record for these significant, costly initiatives that have such potential of helping the company, which sometimes actually put the company in jeopardy of financial viability in some of these mid-sized companies and smaller sized companies. So we really wanted to see that change. And our objective is to have 95% success as defined by our customer success criteria. And that's really the objective of the company. And then using our learnings and publishing those out into the marketplace to change the way consulting is done in with digital transformation. And so that's also, by the way, why I'm writing a book called the Digital Transformation Guidebook. Um, but
Wow.
yeah, that's the impetus of the company and how we got our name.
Interesting. That is quite an amazing and visionary story. So, tell us, story. What are some of the indicators that an ERP or digital transformation project is actually heading for trouble?
Yeah, so there's early indicators, and I'll say what some of those are, but they're often missed. So one of the early indicators is that people have that significant stakeholders in the project have a different view of what is included in the project. If you take, for example, let's say an ERP implementation, and you talk to somebody that's in charge of production, for example, and you ask them the same question and just say, so what's included in this project? And they make a list. And then you go to somebody else, say warehouse and say, what's included in this project, and take their list. And if you do this across a few different areas of the company, and even at the C level, talk to the COO, talk to the CEO, talk to the CFO, and ask them the same question: what's included in this project? If you get different answers, you're pretty much guaranteed you're going to start running into problems. You won't notice them until downstream a ways, but that's when you're really going to run into problems. Um, One of the other things is if you say, why are we doing this? You ask the same, again, a group of people, and ideally people that are even, working uh, at, at doing the work in the business, people on the production line, people that are working in the warehouse. If you ask the question, why is the company doing this project? And so if people can't tell you what's included in the project and why the project is happening, you're bound for trouble. Those are high danger signs. Um, what people often see is downstream further, where the milestones are several milestones have been missed. And I've literally come into projects that are. I'll give you an example. One of the very first projects that Victoriified was on, um, we came in. The company had spent roughly right around $3 million on an ERP implementation, and the original estimate for that implementation had been 12 months and $1.5 million. Now they were now over 24 months into it, so double what they had said, and $3 million into it, and they were now being told they were 50% complete. So that means now that means that the project was currently estimated to be 4 times the original estimate. And then we go back in time a little bit in the reporting on it and find out that, well, they've been being told they were 50% complete for several iterations of change orders, so that it went from 1.5 million to 2 million, but we're 50% complete. Then from 2 million to 2.5 million, but we're 50% complete. 3 million, we're 50% complete. If you're not burning down your level of completeness as your budget spend is getting burned down, there you have significant problems. It's too late at that point. And what we showed was and identified was that none of the significant project participants and stakeholders could actually answer those two basic questions of why are we doing this and what's included in the scope of this project. And they often said, well, we have to do an upgrade because our current ERP system is no longer supported. That was the only reason that people agreed on. But anything beyond that it was all over the map. So yeah, it's late downstream when you're getting estimates to completion that keep changing, but your percent complete isn't changing. You're in deep trouble, and it's already in the ditch. That's like your truck is in the ditch and your tires are spinning. Your speedometer is showing that you're going somewhere, but you're not making any traction, so you're not actually moving the vehicle at all. You're already stuck. It's too late to make. You can't make a course correction, right? You're already stuck in the ditch at that point.
That's a really great illustration. So, tell us, what is the core of your process for transformational change, and how does it fundamentally shift how companies approach these projects?
Sure. So I break the process down into 3 areas, 3 stages, I call them. And the first one is prepare. So there's a lot of preparation that needs to happen, and interestingly, people will often have a kickoff on these projects, particularly if you bring in a consulting company and you're going to implement, again, we'll use an ERP example. If you're going to implement an ERP system, they'll have this company will come in and do a kickoff with you, and there will be this big thing. The kickoff meeting is at the end of our preparation phase. If you haven't done a lot of preparation before that, you're already behind the 8 ball. You're already not prepared for the project. So by the time the kickoff happens, there's a tremendous amount of work that should have been done. And that's the preparation phase. And I call it prepare. And then you have the execute. And the execute stage, that's relatively easy, although that's usually where people see the projects going in the ditch because most of the work that wasn't done up front. But in the execute, that's where project management really comes in. That's where people are writing code and people are doing all the implementation work, and you're setting up your infrastructure, and you have highly skilled people doing the things that they know how to do, and those parts tend to succeed as long as the preparation was done. But that's where a lot of the failures are observed, is at the end, towards the end of that execute stage. But execution ends at go live. But there's still another stage after that that we call sustain. And the point of that is when you go live, that's really the beginning of the change. Your preparation is preparing the company for the change. The execution is basically designing and implementing the change. But the third stage really is making that change become part of the DNA of the company, adopting the change, sustaining the change, making it something that, early on, people would say, well, we've always done it this way. You want them to go from, well, now this is the new way of doing it during the execution. They're always talking about the new way. But when the sustain stage, you want people saying, now that's the way we do it now. And it's become their way and the company's way of executing on their business plan. And that's a significant part of that is we call it measure, monitor, and maintain. So you want to measure the effectiveness of the changes that you've made. You want to monitor conformity to the new processes that you've put into place, and monitor the health of the system and things like that. There's a lot that you monitor based on the measurements that you've defined, and then maintain is making those small course corrections. Sometimes your best laid plans that you executed on actually need to be changed a little bit, and you tweak what you did, rework it, maybe re-engineer your process again. But it's also the part where you start thinking about continuous improvement, maintaining your SOPs and things like that. So there's a lot of work that comes after go live, and really, if you focus on those three areas properly, your primary effort, particularly from a leadership perspective, will be in the prepare and the sustain stages. And then you let the experts execute well, and you'll succeed.
Interesting. Measure, monitor, and maintain. MMM. That sounds like a really effective model. So, Tori, let's talk AI for a moment. So, tell us,
Sure.
where do you see the most practical near-term application of artificial intelligence in manufacturing and supply chain today?
Well, so first of all, where a lot of people are using AI in all kinds of businesses are still really effective. So, for example, just in simple things like generating job descriptions and things like that. I mean, those are quick and easy wins that you can get with AI. And one of the great areas that I see is putting in an AI agent that can actually help answer the personnel questions that come up with policies, procedures, and things like that, um, as well as benefits, and all of these areas. Those are really easy wins, and they don't have anything to do with manufacturing, right? They just have to do with business in general. So those are some of the areas. But one of the biggest opportunities in manufacturing, particularly in manufacturing environments that use a lot of automated machinery, is predictive maintenance. So the idea in the past was that you had preventative maintenance, where you replace certain components on a regular basis. And, you had scheduled maintenance uh, based on the percentages, if you will. And so, we follow that with our automobiles, for example, of changing the oil every 3,000 miles or something like that. Um, that's periodic or preventative maintenance. But with predictive maintenance, you can actually, utilizing sensors within your factory, you can actually know how things are performing. And so, for example, if a servo motor, let's say in your packaging machine, is increasing in the current that's required to make the motions that it's been making for years, there's a component that's going out, most likely some kind of a bearing or something like that, that is requiring more current to turn the motor for the same motion that it used to take. Those kinds of things, there's so much data that it takes to be able to know what's normal, for example, to identify when things are getting outside of the norm. That kind of information, AI is really good at that. And we went through the phase in the early to mid 2000s where of big data, and being able to handle that data is really what enabled AI to be able to do what it does now. So taking that information that's coming through IoT, um, you can utilize that information to predict where your potential failures are going to be within your plant, and take proactive action to rectify the problem before it becomes a problem. And that works well in two ways. Number one, you're not replacing components just on a time basis if they don't need to be replaced. And number two, you're replacing things maybe before you otherwise would have on a schedule, because they're failing before you knew they would fail. And so on both sides of it, you're avoiding downtime, and you're uh, minimizing the cost for maintenance at the same time. So predictive maintenance is probably one of the greatest um, opportunities, and there's a lot of models out there for that, and a lot of products out there that can help you with that. So that's I think, one of the greatest areas. The other area is really with production, um, uh, routing and operations and those kinds of things. Just optimizing your routing, optimizing the operations within your routing. AI is really good at taking data, utilizing that to help you with optimization of processes and operations. So that's another area. Um, Another thing that is becoming big is the concept of digital twins. To be able to, in essence, simulate portions of your business, and and then um, and then have it simulate problems, and to obtain what could likely happen, as well as what would be a way to mitigate the impact of this type of problem. And if we'd done some of that previously, for example, stress testing supply chains before COVID, and having a digital twin for a supply chain, and then saying, well, what happens if we can't get this or whatever, and being able to simulate potential problems. I think a lot of people would have been able to react much better to the supply chain problems that came as a result of COVID.
That is indeed very insightful, Tori. So, tell us, how has the core challenge of digital transformation changed from the 1980s to today? I mean, what has changed and what has remained the same?
Yeah. Okay. So the first thing that's changed is um, the disciplines of project management and software development have greatly increased in maturity. So, it used to be project management uh, was hard. It was hard to find people that were good project managers. Um, but now it's much more mature. And portfolio management, you can manage multiple projects simultaneously, and as well as some of the agile methodologies for the organization as well, like SAFe. There's the product mindedness as opposed to project mindedness. So there's a whole bunch of maturing and a great body of knowledge in the project management aspect of things. So that's one area. And the tools too are just tremendous, much better tools today for project management. The other area is software development and the engineering side of things, whether it's software engineering or whether it's infrastructure or even hardware and firmware engineering and things like that. That has tremendously increased in maturity as well. We can be a lot more efficient, a lot more effective, generate fewer bugs, have higher quality code being put out. So there's just a lot more that we can do today. And we can produce a lot uh, more breadth of feature functionality a lot quicker than we used to be able to. And so it allows for more complex projects. And then project management being mature, that allows for manage them in better place. The thing that hasn't changed is the need for proper preparation and leadership. The people, so organizational change management is still in its infancy, in my opinion. It's not a mature discipline. It's basically just been defined as a problem, and the solutions, there's many different frameworks that, and none of them have a lot of let's say history of success yet. And so a lot of that needs to be shaken out yet. But the reality of needing to manage change within the company is no different. So it's people, process, and technology is the way that you want to think about it, or people, process, and systems. But the technology has greatly advanced. The process changes still are not as advanced as they should be. In spite of all of the process improvement efforts that happened in the late 80s and the 90s. Um, but the really the people side of it, we're just not doing a good job at helping people through the change, through the transformation, and and utilizing people well in that change process. And then we just don't do a very good job of leading that whole thing, then understanding these issues and having the kind of leadership at the top levels to make sure that we've got our eye on the right ball, make sure that we're focused on the proper organizational change management, make sure that we're communicating the right vision about this transformation, make sure that we've got the right processes in place and we're really focused on optimizing our processes and those kinds of things. That hasn't changed. In fact, in my opinion, it's gotten worse, and and we're seeing larger numbers of failures and bigger dollar failures than previously.
Amazing. So, part of the theme of this podcast is centered around innovation. So, for that reason, there's one question I like to ask every guest before they finally conclude the interview on this podcast. So, tell us, Tori, what does innovation mean to you, and how does it relate to your field, your work in the context of business transformation and technology adoption?
So, to me, innovation is the proper application of ideas to a problem or an opportunity. So, if you face a problem or you see an opportunity, properly applying the right idea to solve that problem or take advantage of that opportunity is what innovation is all about. And how it applies is in my business and in the industry that I'm in, which is digital transformation consulting. The the way that it applies is, number one, helping companies identify the problem they're trying to solve or the opportunity that they're trying to take advantage of, before you make decisions from a technology perspective. And then number two is finding the right solutions for those problems or opportunities, making sure that we're really focused on the right thing that's actually going to solve that problem or actually going to leverage that opportunity in a way that brings true success to the company, to the client. So that's I think how innovation applies in my industry. And unfortunately, there's not been enough work done to get the right solution, to understand the problem properly, or to understand the opportunity properly and properly guide the company into the right solution to meet their objective. So it's not as much innovation as, the use of technology and new technology is not innovation if it doesn't actually make a positive impact on the company.
Wow, that's a really great one there. So, finally, tell us, where can our listeners go learn more about your work at Victoriified Consulting and connect with you?
Yeah, so victoriified.com is the best way to connect with me. LinkedIn, Tory Bjorklund is my LinkedIn profile. You can look for me there. I do have torybjorklund.com as well. There isn't a lot of content on there yet. I am working on a book that you can get information from torybjorklund.com on that as well. Um, and I, eh, it's it'll be on the Victoriified website soon as well. It's at the publisher right now, and it's going to take a while. I've got a lot of editing and things yet to do on it, but it'll be out sometime in 2026. So we'll be putting that on the website for people to find out about as well. But victoriified.com, you can find me on there. You can send me an email. You can reach out to me on LinkedIn as well, and as well as you'll find me on Twitter and Substack and Medium and all kinds of other places as well.
Amazing, Tori. So it's been a really great conversation with you today, and I'm totally excited to have you on the show.
I appreciate it very much, Ezekiel. You asked great questions. It was really a lot of fun for me, and hopefully I can come back when my book is released and we can talk more about that.
Sure, sure, Tori.